Vegan wife, Amy Beth Brandon. What is our segment today?
Well, so I have over the last month been working on a free resource for people. And something I want to say before I kind of dive into that is this theme that I've noticed of people who are trying to do the right thing is that there's often people that are misunderstanding their motives and their intentions. And there's also people that have their own greed and agendas behind what they're doing and stopping people like Captain Paul from doing the right thing. And something that I heard this last week that really resonated with me, which is going to be a really great lead into my free resources. First of all, we're all people here. I think that people who are on the radio or who have been doing work for years and years and years and have this immense experience can be put on this pedestal as if, we got here and, oh my gosh, justice is happening for Paul, but it took years for that to happen. It took 17 years for that to happen. And on top of that, he's dealt with criticism. I mean, we all have at some level, there's all been pain at some point. And what was told at this speaking event that I was at was, we may have these awesome things that are happening in our lives, but it hasn't been out of pain. We've all had to experience some sort of pain in order to get where we are. And that's exactly how I view my new free resource, which is called Vegan School. And a lot of you already know my story, which is based off health. I was one of those healthy vegans who was just doing it for myself and just to feel better, just because I had been duped by the medical system. I had been duped by network marketing companies that were trying to sell me healthy products, quote unquote. And I got really sick. And I got to the point where I was about to have to trade my dollars, my good earned dollars, for hard opiate medication in order to function. And that's not natural. That's not what life is supposed to be like, especially for somebody who's 25 years old. So I was having this quarter life crisis, essentially. And I didn't know what to do. And so that's when I was introduced to powdered produce, which got me into veganism. So I watched all the Netflix documentaries about animal cruelty and the factory farming and how it has the effects on our planet and our oceans. And, and then I started changing my lifestyle, and it was little by little. It was drip by drip. The first thing I did was took meat out of my fridge. I stopped buying animal products. I replaced my animal product meals with familiar foods that I was finding. And I did a lot of self-work, a lot of there's a lot of personal development that comes with this lifestyle change, I feel like. And that's not something that people like to talk about. They like to talk about their food and how yummy it is and, animals, saving those, doing those kind of things. But there is this personal journey that you get to go on as a new vegan, as somebody who's becoming environmentally friendly, environmentally conscious, and conscious of themselves and the place that they have in the world. And that's just kind of the journey that I've been on. And that's just a small snippet of my journey. I mean, there's been tears, there's been revelations. Jana, you've walked with me through some of the hardest times in my life, but it was because I got my health right, so that I could clear my mind up enough to absorb these new lifestyle changes that I was taking on. And it was hard. It was really hard in the beginning to do that because I had people that misunderstood me. I mean, even my own family and some of my own friends in the beginning, they weren't very supportive. They're like, what the heck? Like, why are you doing this new fad? And I've been one of those people that have done fads. I've, have publicly talked about it. I've had a weight loss journey, quote unquote. I've been sucked into diet culture, posting before and afters. And that's not what life is about, people. And that's kind of what Vegan School is all about is, we're starting from scratch. We're getting rid of old diet mindsets. We're moving into simple practices that you can take on as far as how to meal plan, how to shop, how to find your meals that you want to make, and how to find those familiar foods that you think that you have to give up in order to make this lifestyle transition. This is not a quote unquote, I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm not giving out nutrition information. This is literally just lifestyle coaching for going vegan. And it's simple. It's literally like a 22-minute video. I have dumb down it's like going vegan for dummies. So anybody could do this. It's something that I wish that I would have had in the beginning of my own vegan journey, because I had nobody. I had Google and I had Pinterest, and I had my husband, who was mostly supportive, but didn't know what he was getting himself into, and now is plant-based. And so that's what vegan school is all about. You can find out more.
And it's
about
free,
that.
right? There's no charge.
Yes,
we can do vegan school for free.
Welcome to the Peas in Progress podcast. Here, we'll share our experiences as a biracial millennial couple who got married in the South and what we've learned together through the current social and political climate.
All while learning to trust and love one another through what seems to be a life in transition. Welcome to our life.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm Amy Beth.
Hey friends, just a friendly notice. We want to let you know that this podcast will be adult friendly, including language and subject matter not suitable for younger ears. So if you have headphones, now would be a good time to use them.
Yay. So now that you've heard my radio voice, that was just a little snippet of the show that we had this week. Today, actually, as we're recording this. But that was me sharing my story about vegan school and how I got there and why this is so important. And so in this podcast, I wanted to talk about the V word, which is going vegan. Which really freaks people out. But you know what? It's time to give this V word a different meaning. This is going to be a little bit different than some of our last podcasts, as I hope it's a little bit shorter for your ears. And we're taking this thing slow because there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes for Team Bolden.
Yes.
In fact, we just got off a very serious phone call about business stuff. So as we are recording these things, just know that we are real people and that we have a lot going on behind the scenes. And we're not going to be here as regularly, but we hope to get to that point one day. We just don't have the time, the space, the energy to do what we want yet, but we're glad that you're here. So if you like this podcast, make sure that you like it, rate it, subscribe, share it with your friends, because this is just one part of a big harmonious vegan chorus that we're putting together this month in honor of the launch of my new vegan school, which you already heard about on the intro. So I wanted to dive in just a little bit deeper about our stories because, you know, I only had 7 minutes to talk today. So, and we've kind of covered this just a little bit within the first parts of our podcast, but we should probably talk about this a little bit in depth because a lot of people ask us while we're vegan. We get a lot of questions about it, about our lifestyle. And we actually look a whole lot different than we did 3.5 years ago.
Yes.
The before and afters, while is subscribing to diet culture, which I'm not particularly a fan of, is incredible. We are completely different people inside and out. And like I said earlier today on our radio show, you know, this has become there's been a lot of personal development that's happened because of this journey.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. So much personal development. And I mean, on so many levels. Personally, I have this clarity about me. Physically, I feel more efficient. Emotionally, I feel more in control. I mean, just so much growth in so many areas. And it's not just like with being vegan and that sort of thing too, but it's actually making it a lifestyle. And so I'm excited to talk about how that part of our journey is developed and just like the impacts of it.
Right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and tell my vegan story and how I got here. And I have to preface this and say that my vegan journey has very much changed over time. Like, it is not the same animal as it was when I first started going vegan. And all that really started with, you know, the first parts of our marriage. Or even before that, you know, it was, I mean, all my life, and you've heard in our last podcast, I've dealt with health problems. I had a very serious back surgery when I was very young. So there's a lot of body trauma that I've had to deal with. And because of all of that, I have chronic back pain. And it's not really a joke. It really is a thing that I deal with. Even now, I deal with it still way less than I used to. But when I was 25, and this was after a few years that we got married, that I was feeling really crappy, really, really shitty. Really, that's just how it was. And I was at the point where I was not able to walk to the bathroom at night. I remember the day that we moved into our Louisiana apartment, I wasn't even able to help my husband move in. And I felt like shit about that because I wasn't able to help. And that's just who I am. I love to help. And here I am being stuck in this chair while I'm watching my husband and one guy who volunteered to come and help us move in to our second story apartment in the middle of August of Louisiana heat.
It was hot as fuck.
It was so hot. And I was at my wit's end. A little bit before that time, I had met a friend and she shared with me powdered produce, which is in form of Juice Plus capsules, which is a completely vegan line of phytonutrients that you can take like a vitamin, except it's whole food nutrition and it's got a nutrition label. So that really impressed me. And I had done things like that before with network marketing, MLM companies trying to sell me on this idea of health. But what really was happening was they were selling me products. They weren't selling me a solution. They were just selling me products and things. And I became obsessed with my weight. I wanted to look a certain way, be a certain size, and it affected our marriage. There were, Brandon had to climb up the mountain and help me down. Many of the times when I would get myself worked up about the way that I looked or the way that I didn't look or the way, just the way that things were progressing with my weight, I was just so confused about weight and nutrients and what was good for me. And I was really just going off what other people were doing. That's when I started taking the powdered produce. It was soon after we got to Louisiana. So it was right as Brandon was starting school. And I started to feel different immediately. We started with a Shred 10 program, which is basically a lifestyle training program. And it helped so much that I was like, okay, there's got to be something to this. There's got to be something to this whole healthy, holistic thing that I'm missing out on because things taste good or because this is just how it's always been done or, just the idea, the mindset behind sickness and health and what that looked like from the culture that I was a part of. Just how helpless we all seem to be. And what really is going on is that we have the power at the end of our forks and with our dollar and our paycheck, but we don't understand that these companies are being subsidized by the government to the point where it's all we can afford. It's all we can afford. And that's something that I learned over time. After I began to experience my health journey positively for the first time in a long time. And I wasn't losing weight, you guys. I actually gained more weight when I started getting healthy because what happens is your body, when it's full of toxins, it starts to protect itself with fat. And so my insides were ripped to shreds. And so what was happening is my body was quote unquote detoxing and there was a lot of toxins within my body and my body just started gaining weight, putting on fat. And then all those toxins are kept in the fat, So it was just this cycle of terribleness that I wish I wouldn't have gotten myself into, but I'm so glad that I learned from because I don't feel like many people are going to admit that they made this mistake of following these protocols of shakes and, pre-workouts and these bars and this snack and this plant-based thing. You know how many times I get approached by MLM companies on Instagram? I need you to stop it because I don't want any of that stuff.
Nasty.
It's not that. It's just,
I know.
It's not sustainable. And then these companies are making money off of people's pain, which is unethical. It is unfreaking ethical. And you can say otherwise that your company is doing this and this and that. And you know what? I can say it about Juice Plus that I love the company, but I'm not going to do the practices that they do because that's not how I roll. I'm not here to make money off people's pain. I am here to recommend high-end products that actually work. So it was from that point on that, we had to get in our kitchen. We had to learn how to cook. And so I had my trusty friend Google right in my hand because I have an iPhone. And it was easier to find recipes, especially on Pinterest because I'm a big Pinterest fiend. You know, I'm like the Pinterest girl that Eliza Schlesinger talks about, the pin. I would find all the vegan recipes in the world. And that's just how we began. It was very humble beginnings in our teeny tiny ass kitchen that we lived in the used and had no room to cook on. None whatsoever.
So tiny.
And we made it work, people. And we went to Walmart. That's where we went and shopped.
Yes, we did.
We found the fruits and vegetables that were the best. We did the very best that we could with what we had. And were we perfect at it? No. Nope. I was still eating sushi at least once every 2 weeks. And I was eating Whataburger once a month, maybe. Yeah. It wasn't that It wasn't that often. Because I was trying to transition. It wasn't perfect. And, you know, I was bringing food to people's places. And did I have a lot of support in the beginning? No, I didn't. The only support that I had was this guy right here and some of the people that were helping me with my powdered produce journey. And they weren't even vegan. So it was really all on my own. And I had to learn for myself. So that's when I began sharing my journey. And it's just escalated from there. And I feel so much better. I'm not going to say that going vegan is going to cure everything, because it doesn't. It does not cure everything. I think that there's a big mindset shift that people need to make with lifestyle choices, is that it's not one thing that's going to make your problem go away. It's going to be a collective of good actions that are going to benefit you in the long run, that are going to give you better health in the long run. So one of the things that I say in vegan school that I was reminded of today is that if you're not taking responsibility for yourself, for your health, and for the environment, you're missing the mark on what it means to be human. I mean, I've heard people say this before where they're like, oh, well, we're all going to die of something anyway. That's a terrible mindset to have. You know, how can you expect to enjoy life if all you're doing is just feeding your ego, feeding your inner desires, when there's a bigger world out there. There's a bigger world outside of yourself and the things that you like and that you want, because there is such thing as too much of a good thing. And we need to balance out those actions. I'd love for you to talk about how you fit into that journey with me.
I'm not gonna lie, I was super skeptical at first. I mean, you talked about the different things that we tried, or I watched you try before going on this vegan journey, and y'all, I cannot really explain this perfectly, but like, it was hard to watch. It was so hard to watch, because on the surface, it looked like, oh, this product or this thing that we're trying is actually making some pretty big effects. I mean, you would lose weight quickly, you look different. It was great. We got those immediate results. But I think what was really hard about it was when you came off of that stuff, when we would switch to something else, just seeing the negative impacts of the things that we tried before. Seeing you for our wedding lose all of that weight, do all of that work, only for months later to have that just return just like that.
It came back so quickly.
So quick. But it didn't just come back, it got worse.
Yeah, I gained more weight than I lost initially. I had lost 30 pounds before, and then I had gained 50. So I rebounded like crazy, and it was awful.
So bad. Like it became back worse than it was. And so it really made me quite skeptical about trying anything new. I mean, I was used to eating junk food and just eating whatever because I worked out a lot. That was just what you did. You fill yourself up with food, and that became your fuel, and that was the thing that you burned off when you worked out. And so while it didn't necessarily balloon up with the things that I was doing, on the outside it didn't really look like anything was happening.
Right. It didn't look like we didn't notice it at the time. We didn't notice anything. You looked normal to me.
Right. But then you look inside of my body and even going back to high school, I'm having these back spasms and leg spasms and I'm having joint pain and I'm not even like 30 or anything yet and no stereotype or anything. It's just I'm young. I'm still growing. I'm still developing.
Too
why
young
am
to
I
be in pain like
Yeah,
that.
too young to be in that kind of pain, too young to be experiencing spasms and joint pain consistently and then calling that normal. Yeah, on the outside I looked fine, but on the inside I was definitely not doing well. And I think what ended up making the switch for me was two things. One was, of course, watching the positive impacts that the choices you, babe, were making. Just seeing how it wasn't just about the weight loss, like seeing your mentality change and seeing your energy levels change and seeing your motivation change because you were changing what you were putting into your body. That was really encouraging. I mean, if you know me, I'm a type 7, and so when I see something really good, I get FOMO pretty easily, and if I'm not careful, then I'll dive into it without really considering it. But in this case, I was really experiencing some FOMO because I'm watching you look better, feel better, think better, express yourself better, like all things better. And here I am still looking normal, but still feeling a lot of pain. And I think another thing that was a motivating factor was my brother's death. You guys heard in a previous podcast that he was shot and killed by gun violence. Well, I found out a little bit later, and this might be a bit personal, but I don't care. You guys need to hear it. That part of the reason why he didn't necessarily survive in ICU was because he bled out. He bled out because he had gastrointestinal issues. He had gastrointestinal issues because he didn't take care of himself. I mean, granted, my brother's like an awesome caretaker. He will put himself...
He took care of everybody else.
Yeah, he would put others before himself, but at the same time, he was deteriorating on the inside. Like on the outside, I mean, handsome as heck, but on the inside, just with the things that he was putting into his body, it ended up catching up to him. And so seeing those two things together, for me, it just came down to a choice of like, do I want to live better or continue to survive? And ultimately, I chose to live better. I mean, looking at my side-by-sides now, being 40 pounds lighter, like at one point I was 210. I had no idea until I like stepped on the scale. And I also didn't have an idea until I looked at those two pictures side by side. Like that was just how much toxins and like stuff that was just stored up in my body over time that I literally thought was normal. I thought it was okay just to have that little pudginess. Like, I don't know why. I just thought it was okay, but it wasn't. And when I started noticing the shifts quickly for me, how I felt sharper and was resting easier and falling asleep easier, and I wasn't having these like pains, these spasms and joint pains, like it really took off for me. And I think that's what encouraged me to make this more of a lifestyle. And then also, like, I get to enjoy this with you. This isn't like a solo journey or something that I feel like I have to do on my own. I'm constantly being encouraged. I have that constant accountability. And I get to flex my new skills in the kitchen. I mean, over time, I have really learned how to cook. All the watching of cooking shows and watching techniques and even reflecting on watching my own moms in the kitchen. I'm a straight up chef now. I mean, I'm not like chef,
He makes chef quality food.
Yeah, and so I ended up teaching myself how to cook. And now I'm cooking these awesome meals that, according to today's culture, would say, oh, that's complicated or that's too expensive. Like, we're literally making $5 meals that have more nutrition than like the traditional kind of like meat and cheese sort of meal. And so I will take that.
Right.
It can be a hard choice sometimes because, I mean, the body keeps the score. Like, you don't necessarily just get rid of those habits that you've built over time. But it has become much easier to make that choice to eat better and to take care of myself as I've made that into like a lifestyle. And it's not just with eating, it's with, watching how much I sleep, watching how much junk food that I take, even if it's vegan junk food, watching my coffee intake, like being mindful of like what's in my food if we go out. Like all of that stuff has really led to a much better me. If you have not seen my side by side, you should. It's on the website. You should look up. It's not on the website.
We'll put it somewhere. I'll put it in the description We'll put it somewhere. appreciate you sharing your story. I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you're talking about with your brother. And I've been approached about this before, of making it seem like our families like ruined our lives with our health choices. And that's bullshit.
No.
Let me just tell you that I am all about grace and learning in this journey. As I have learned, I've not always been this way. So I have to say that I've never been perfect at this, but I'm calling myself out, and I can do that. And I can tell you that I'm not trying to paint the upbringing that I had in this terrible, awful light. There's just a lot of things that we've learned. And like I was telling Dr. Mack last night, like, you can't expect people to get well and get better if they don't have the right information.
Right.
People are trying to do the best with what they got and what they have at the time. There's no reason to blame the past, because we didn't know then. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know how to make things better. And we didn't know what we didn't know. What we didn't know. That's all I can really say, is we just didn't know what we don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, especially on my side, we had limited resources. It wasn't like we can just go out and buy whatever we want, or go out and get all of these top-notch or top-quality foods or whatever.
Or resources to make better quality foods at a very low budget.
Right. I mean, we literally did what we could with what we had. And health, I believe, was always conscious in our family. I mean, even when we had junk food, it wasn't like, oh, you can just have junk food whenever. Like, they really monitored it. And so, yeah, I definitely don't blame my family. I love my family. I love the fact that they made all the sacrifices and things that they did to even allow me to be at a place where I can make this kind of decision. I would not be where I am today without the things that they've done for me, even with the lack of knowledge. Even with that said, though, yeah, I don't think I could ever blame them for the fact of, I wasn't as healthy as I possibly could, because I really feel like they did the best they could with what they had.
Right, and you're not going to blame them for their health detriment because of the lack of resources or knowledge or know-how, because there's such thing as called environmental racism, and I feel like where your family grew up and what I've seen, that's definitely a problem.
Yeah.
There's food. The place where your mom lived before was a food desert. We had to take her to a grocery store.
Right.
She wasn't just able to walk around the corner and go to like Sprouts like we can right here.
Right.
It just wasn't like that. And so I definitely know that we have privilege. I was gonna say we probably have privilege.
No,
we do.
We
definitely have a privilege here in our health, because we have the resources and the know-how to go forward in making that happen. And that's just something that is unfortunate. I don't really know what to do about that except to educate as much as I can, and to find recipes that are, first of all, doable, recognizable to people who don't have the same privilege as us. Like, there are plenty of recipes out there that can be veganized that look similar to the things that you think that you have to give up. Seriously. There is a thing called Google. I highly recommend you do that. So in sharing those stories, this is what has brought me to where I am now. This is the reason that we have this podcast, which is the reason that we have ThatVeganWife.com. And the reason that we have that is because I was consistently sharing this journey. This is a journey that I was sharing, and lo and behold, somebody noticed and said, hey, come be on our radio show as the vegan segment. Like, that literally landed in my lap. And I know I have a privilege in that as well, that my aunt owns this radio show and allows me to be on there with her, and has asked me to bring on my unofficial expertness to lead the pack in realistic, holistic living. And so I'm very thankful, and very thankful for the opportunity, because it's like I get to go to school every day now. My vegan story is very much tied to where it started, but now that I've been in this position of being a LA Talk radio host and getting to sit virtually next to people who have been working in environmental conservation and animal activism for over 50 years, I've learned new information. And so now a lot of my veganism stems not only from the side of being healthy, but being aware of where our food comes from, how it's produced, and also just learning behind the scenes of how these things are happening, and how everything that we're choosing to purchase or participate in is affecting the animals, affecting the planet. And it's very serious, which is why I'm so passionate about this subject. I'm going to be talking about this for the rest of my life because it's very much needed. And I feel like we're both in the right place at the right time for a lot of issues that are happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now, I'm just sharing this. I don't know who's listening. I don't know who's listening or how long you're listening or if you're getting to the end of these podcasts. But just know that this is very important to consider in your life. And I don't ever expect anyone to go vegan and fully vegan. I would be more happy just to hear that you're going plant-based because I know that your impact of eating plant-based is going to be much bigger than if you're not. And we don't need a bunch of people doing this perfectly. We need a bunch of imperfect people trying this, doing their best, because that's where the change is going to happen. And that's only going to spur on more change. So
Yep, progress, not perfection.
And Brandon is not 100% vegan like I am.
No,
I am
I'm
100% vegan because, first of all, my body is the barometer of health, and knowing when there are animal products in my food. My body usually tells me within 5 to 15 minutes of consuming animal products that there's something in there. So if I can detect butter really well, milk really well, that's just diarrhea right there.
Like straight
TMI.
Boo-boo.
Straight boo-boo. Might as well just put it in the toilet because that's where it's going anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not 100% vegan, but I definitely would err towards the side of eating more plants than anything else. I think for me personally, dairy just absolutely not. It destroys me.
Well, there's reasons for that.
Yeah, I mean, it causes inflammation. I remember being younger and just eating dairy all the time, ice cream, like all of the dairy, just all the time. But now when I eat dairy, there's a very clear reaction. There's the boo-boo guts. There's the inflammation. Like I get sniffly. I get really lethargic. And that's just from like learning to take it out and reduce my intake of it. And now that it's just like dairy's a no-go for me, it's made a huge difference. And I've even noticed over time, yeah, here and there I might eat meat, but I've noticed my craving for it has significantly dropped. Whereas before I'd be eating racks of ribs, plus some chicken, plus some steak and everything else that I could get my hands on at a backyard barbecue. Now, just a small portion of it does it for me. And I don't really need it for a really long time. Nor do I really crave it either. And I think that has had a positive impact, not just on my body, but just on our finances too. But more importantly, just my carbon footprint on the world. I mean, again, it's not perfect, but I feel like I'm making steps in the right direction, and I want to continue making steps in that direction and just continue making progress on my lifestyle and just monitoring the things that I put into my body.
I like it. Good job. You know what? Brandon doesn't know what I know, so I can't force down his throat the information about animal slaughter, factory farming, and where all of these inhumane sources of meat come from, because that's not my job. He is a responsible adult human being, and he has Google at his fingertips, so his own ignorance to the things that he doesn't know, and I don't mean to sound, his own ignorance. Not at all. That's his choice. He has a choice just like you have a choice, just like I have a choice, and it's okay. So I know that there's a lot of people out there that are looking to make the vegan lifestyle switch. And if you don't know the difference between vegan and plant-based, I definitely suggest that you Google it, which is my first suggestion for veganers.
Veganers! Was that weird?
Yes.
Okay. Whatever.
Okay, so I'm just going to rip through these really quickly. But the first thing, like I've said over and over and over, Google and Pinterest are your best friends.
Even for the men out there.
You can have a Pinterest account and share it with your lady
Mm-hmm.
and send each other recipes.
It's quite romantic and thoughtful. It builds relationships. I know I'm a relationship expert.
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 You said expert.
Expert.
So, yes. So Google, Pinterest, get an account, find the internet somehow. If you don't have the internet, there's magazines at stores that have those options available to you. And if you don't have that,
there's books.
I don't know what to tell you.
And word of mouth.
Use your resources, man. That's all I gotta say.
Be curious.
You're interrupting me.
Sorry.
So that's it.
Your passion is contagious.
The second is vegan school. Hello. That's the whole point of this one podcast is to talk about vegan school, which is what I talked about in the beginning of this podcast. But this is something I wish that I had in the beginning of my veganing journey.
Well played.
You're welcome. And then also, you're going to have to rework your mindset around food. You're going to have to figure out what your food insecurities are. Because once you become emotionally intelligent about your food practices, that's when you can become aware and then change them. So that's part of the personal development piece that we were emphasizing in the beginning of this podcast, is that there's going to be personal development that happens. You're going to have to get over yourself and figure out what's going on and why you look at food a certain way. And if you don't have a respect for food, find one, make one, learn to cook, find recipes via Pinterest and Google, and treat yourself. Make good food for yourself because you freaking deserve it.
Mind if I speak to that a little bit? Because when we talk about mindset, I almost kind of equate it to going through a therapy process, right? Where at the beginning, you're coming in with a problem. You're coming in with this thing that you're not doing well or just isn't working. And so truly be honest with yourself. Like, there's nothing wrong with really evaluating where you are and being honest about that, because that's going to be the perfect tool that's going to help you to measure the amount of growth that you do over time. And I mean, even as you're trying things here and there, the goal is really progress, not perfection. And so if you try something and you experience some progress, like, try it again and see if you get more progress. Like, build upon it, try it a different way. And if it doesn't work, guess what? You just learn more about yourself. Like, don't take it as like a failure or anything like that, but take it more as an opportunity of, hey, I learned that this does not necessarily work for me. So I'm going to scrap it and I'm going to develop more of the things that are working. And over time, as you're like building upon that, like, that's going to lead you to more things that work, and it's going to lead you to more things that work, and it's going to lead you to more resources that work and people that can help you and like keep you accountable. Like, it really is a process. And so really adapt the mindset of like progress, not perfection, and that when you do reach a dead end or a shortcoming or things just don't work, that it's just an opportunity to say, hey, I know a bit more about myself. So like, that mindset is so huge.
And it's really hard to do. We're not going to sit here and say, just do this, because you can just do a lot of things and they may just not work. So it's just about kind of a self-experimentation process where you're figuring out what works best for you. And that can take freaking years.
Yes.
It can take years. And I was telling our doctor, one of our chiropractors last night, it's taken me 3.5 years to lose, I don't know how many pounds, like 30 pounds that I had, like 20 pounds that I had gained, and like another 10 pounds to get back to almost normal. And I look the same, by the way. So my weight is different. Like, I weigh more now than when we got married, but I look the same as I did when we got married. And I don't think that I can put on my wedding dress or anything, but I feel like I'm feeling way better than I did a few years ago. And it's taken me 3.5 years. And I'm not even done yet. I'm still in the process. I'm still detoxing. I'm still building those healthy habits that we're trying to make. And it's a process. It's a process. And so one of the things...
I mean, just one more thing to that. It's a process, but it's sustainable. Like, it lasts. It's not just like that quick fix and then it like suddenly fades. Like, you're building on something that's going to last through time. And so Joel Embiid says this in the NBA, but like, respect the process. Like, seriously. I mean...
Which is so cheesy, but
whatever.
It's true. It's cheesy but true. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's cheesy. And which leads me to my next point of finding a community, which means finding that one person or few people that's going to help you along this process. I wouldn't have been able to do any of what I'm doing right now without this guy right here. And for a long time, he was the dude he was the dude that I leaned on. And, you know, I had a few other people like my sister and my best friend, and they were really supportive, but I didn't have a lot of people nearby that were doing the same thing as me, which often made things really, 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 really hard, because it was hard to go out in social settings, and going out to restaurants with people is always still really difficult. And, you know, so you have to have people next to you. Now, there's a few things that you need to not listen to about veganism, and that is the first one being that it's unhealthy. There are a lot of popular vegan bloggers and YouTubers that are not going vegan anymore because they have not, how do I say this without bashing them? I feel in my heart that they have manipulated veganism to be another lifestyle trend instead of figuring out how it can work for you. Because there are scientific ways and proof that show that you can go vegan and be successful at it, as long as you're making sure that you're getting everything that you need. That means having a colorful whole food diet. That doesn't mean, it could also mean getting some supplements that you might need for your body. It may mean taking some extra steps outside of what you're eating. Okay, so we're talking about veganism here as what we eat. Most of the time we're going to be talking about food, because that's what kind of vegans, that's not what kind of vegans focus on. They really do focus on the food, because a lot of people don't understand that it can be really good. But some of these things that they're making aren't always nutritionally dense, which is really important. You need that nutritional density, but you also need to incorporate other practices outside of that. Other two things of it not being doable or not being for everyone, that's not true at all. I think it is a total mindset thing. I know that it can be hard. I know that there are way less options out there. And I know that I live in a city that provides me with vegan options. It's like vegan heaven out here. So it was hard. I started in a place where the norm was not to be vegan, and their norm was there was no vegan option. So I get it, but you have to figure out why you're doing this. I would say, figure out why you're doing this and stick to your guns, because otherwise you're gonna phase out and you're gonna leave. And that's why I am promoting Vegan School, because it is going to go into all of this a little bit more in depth, and we're going to be talking about some stats about diet and mindset behind all of that. And then we'll be going into those realistic practices that you can do. So we'll be talking about meal planning, and you'll be getting a 4-day meal plan as well as a shopping list, which is super helpful, by the way. And I worked really hard on it. So
yes, you did.
And it looks amazing. So it's printable. You can download it whenever you sign up for Vegan School. And also, I was going to say that it comes with a 22-minute video. So I have really cut out the crap when it comes to learning to go vegan. It's 22 minutes long, so it's less than 25 minutes. You'll be able to listen and learn about some realistic things that you can start doing right now in order to get you to your #vegan goals. So,
and you have lifetime access, so you can always come back.
And it comes with an online community. There's a veganers group on Facebook in which that you can join, where there's a lot more resources. You can post in your stories. I'm encouraging community-like behavior in this vegan school. I don't want you to try and do this alone, especially if you're new to this. Being new to this is really difficult, which is why I created this entire thing in the first place, because I know what it's like in the beginning, and it sucks. So that's my spiel. That's my spiel. That's all I gotta say. I don't really have anything else to say. You've taken a look at vegan school. What do you think so far?
It's quite incredible. I get to see the behind the scenes work that you do, but then to see the final product of it all and to know that it's still growing. Like, this content, y'all, is amazing. Like, you won't help but just continue to click on the different links that my wife has looked up and done research on. You won't help but just ask questions of yourself and about choices that you might make, of choices that you see other people make, about the data that you're going to find. You're really going to find yourself immersed in this. And that's what I mean by making it a lifestyle, it becoming a lifestyle. The content on this page, the content within this community is really going to help you to to strengthen the practices that you do and making this a lifestyle, we're really going to be encouraging you to do it in a way that works for you. Like we said, there's really no one perfect way to do this. And I think that's one thing that I really love about the course, the information that's provided, that it really leaves it up for interpretation to really put it down the way that makes sense for you. And so I really do encourage you to join, to subscribe, to leave your comments, to ask questions, and to really take the time to grow yourself and to grow who you are through it too. Yeah, it's just simply amazing content, eye-catching. It is.
I'm not paying you to say this, so you can stop it.
I know you're not paying me. I just want people to know how awesome.
I'm not even getting paid. It's free, by the way. It's free. It's free. So, anyways, if you would like to subscribe to this podcast, make sure to do this. Yeah, make sure to do that and rate, share with your friends. And if you would like to join Vegan School, you can find that at ThatVeganWife.com/course. Super simple. All the information is on there. I have a promo video that you can watch as well. And then as soon as you sign up, you will confirm your subscription. And then from there, you'll get the information drip by drip. So you should get the information within 24 hours, obviously. But that's all I got to say. This has been fun. This has been nice to be short.
Yes.
I hope this is easy to edit for you, for your sake, because we got lots of going on behind the scenes. Don't have a lot of time to edit. I'll find, yes.
We'll get it done. We'll get it done.
Yes.
I wonder what we will talk about next.
Actually, next time, we have a special guest coming on. We will be recording that episode here in the next month. It's going to be about people pleasing, which ties in a lot of my story and your story. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have our people pleasing expert, Audrey, and she's very excited. So she's going to be really fun to talk to. I'm really pumped about it. Yeah, cool. Okay, bye.
Bye.